10 spine-chilling legendary tales revealed by haunted grandparents. Terrifying true stories. Claire felt the thrill of new beginnings as she drove into Maplewood, Connecticut, her new suburb, where every house sparkled like a diamond and every lawn was a meticulously mowed paradise. Her heart raced with joy. This was the picture of the American dream. But her excitement quickly twisted into dread the moment she caught a glimpse of Mrs. Hargrove next door. The elderly woman's gaze was piercing yet haunted, as if she could see straight into Claire's soul. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Mrs. Hargrove said, a faint tremor in her voice. "I have stories to share, stories about this place." Her tone dropped, and Claire's stomach churned. Those stories danced around in Claire's mind. Ghostly tales of a woman in white, forever searching for her lost child, haunted her every evening. The hushed whispers of families consumed by a fire years ago, a tragedy cloaked in the smiles of cheerful neighbors. At first, Claire chuckled to herself, dismissing them as just local folklore, another form of entertainment. But her laughter died slowly with each chilling anecdote that Mrs. Hargrove revealed. "Children used to run these streets, always careful of the woods," the old lady warned, her inkling of a warning sending chills down Claire's spine. "But not anymore." As days passed, the children's laughter turned quiet and ominous. They drew pictures of a dark figure looming just outside their window. Claire shivered as she inspected the artwork. The tall, shadowy figure was all too familiar. Her husband Mark dismissed it, attributing it to imagination, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then came late-night phone calls that rattled Mark's unbreakable concentration. A voice on the other end spoke of family ties, a distant relative who could only be a welcome spectral nuisance. "I don't recognize that voice," Claire warned. Tension coiled tighter around their throats like creeping vines. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Candles flickering in the dim light became Claire's sole comfort one night as an unsettling chill settled deep in her bones. A shadow swept across the front porch, an ethereal specter of dread that was no longer mere fantasy. Something whispered her name on the wind, a name that felt ripped from her core. Heart pounding, Claire glanced outside, the shadows twisting against the porch light. Within moments, she glimpsed a fleeting figure slipping through the darkness, trembling as it vanished around the corner. Dread swept through her, leaving a hollow pit in her stomach. Desperation led Claire to seek assistance at the local police station. The laughter of officers only deepened her fears. "It's just stress from moving," one dismissed. But her connection with Mrs. Hargrove remained her only lifeline. However, that night, when another child went missing from Maplewood, their laughter echoing remnants of joy turned into mourning whispers. Claire's gut twisted in knots, the folklore tales swimming in her mind. Each story had tied itself in a web of horrifying coincidences. Struggling to keep her children safe, Claire faced her darkest shadow yet. The figure grew closer each night, suffocating the happiness in her home and replacing it with gloom. As she tucked her kids safely into bed, she felt the ominous threat pressing in, whispering from the dark corners of their abode. Fear pierced through her heart like a jagged blade. Could she save her family before the darkness consumed them altogether? Claire lay wide awake, the exhaustion of the past few weeks clawing at her, but sleep eluded her. The air in the house felt thick, constricting, as though a storm brewed outside the dimly lit windows. Shadows danced unsettlingly, playing tricks on her weary mind. She could hear it again, soft whispers seeping through the walls, curling around her like ghostly fingers. Her heart raced. "Just the wind," she whispered to herself, but deep down, she knew. It wasn't just the wind. The night dragged on, the tick-tock of the clock like a heartbeat counting down to some unknown doom. Just before dawn, the soft sound of children laughing jolted Claire from the fog of sleepless strain. Confusion settled in. It was too early for any kids to be outside. She crept to the window, her palms clammy against the cold glass. Sure enough, there they were, 3 children playing in her front yard. But they weren't laughing in joy. Their faces were pale and drawn, expressions that hinted at something amiss. Each time one of them glanced in her direction, a shiver ran down her spine. It was as if they were beckoning her, inviting her to join them in their twisted fun. "Mom." Her younger daughter's voice broke the trance. "What's wrong?" Claire turned sharply, feeling her throat tighten. "Nothing, sweetie. Just go back to sleep." As the children outside drifted closer to the porch, Claire felt drawn to them, an urge she couldn't understand. She took a steadying breath and finally, against her better judgment, opened the door. The cool air rushed in, sending chills across her skin. The children's laughter filled the space, bright yet chilling. "Join us, Claire." One of them called out, their eyes glinting with mischief. The voice so familiar. "Who are you?" Claire asked, fear choking her voice. The children giggled, their heads tilting in unison, as if trying to decipher her nature. "We've been waiting for you," they said, with an unnatural harmony that struck a bone-deep chord of dread in her. Too afraid to step any further, Claire hesitated, her heart pounding against her ribcage. As if sensing her fear, the children's faces contorted, twisting into something horrifically terrifying. Their skin faded, becoming translucent, as shadowy outlines began replacing once bright smiles. She stumbled back, slamming the door closed, her breath rapid and shallow. Claire's screams echoed through the empty hallway, but it was a scream nobody would hear. She fell to the ground, fighting off the panic. She had to act. She couldn't let them take her children. But how? Desperate, she turned to Mrs. Hargrove. If anyone knew about the history, it was her. The old woman had spoken of spirits, of children who had once played her backyard, lost, eternally searching. Dawn began to break with a bruised sky. Claire dashed next door, her heart racing in fear and urgency. She barely knocked before the door swung open, revealing Mrs. Hargrove in her frayed housecoat, her eyes wide with recognition. "What did they tell you?" Mrs. Hargrove whispered, trembling. "You must leave, now." "But I can't leave. My children, those aren't just children." The warning slashed through the air. "They're part of the curse." "You have to." A loud crash interrupted, reverberating through the stillness. Claire's heart shattered into fragments of terror as she turned. It came from her house. No, as panic flooded her veins, she raced back, the old woman's voice fading behind her. But the whispers had grown louder, sinister promises coiling around her thoughts. "What are you, Claire?" echoed from the shadows, and she felt the darkness closing in. Running down the hallway, she threw herself at the door to her children's room. But it was locked tight, the sound of soft, playful giggles spilling from within. "Mommy, come play," they sang, voices sweet as honey yet saturated in malice. With every ounce of strength, she pounded on the door. "I'm coming. I'm coming." But inside, the sounds of her children faded into an eerie silence. And the giggles twisted. "What did you bring us, Claire?" In that moment, the realization hit her with a terrifying clarity. She had opened a door meant to remain shut. What awaited inside? Would it be the life she wanted to protect, or the darkness threatening to consume everything she loved? As the door creaked open ever so slightly, Claire braced herself for what lay beyond, her heart echoing in her ears. The darkness loomed large, closer than ever. What awaited her on the other side? The door swung open, its hinges groaning like a creature awakened from a long slumber. Claire squinted into the dark room, where the air felt thick and stagnant. The giggles had vanished, replaced by a suffocating silence that pressed against her ears. Heart thundering, she stepped inside, the wooden floor creaking beneath her feet as if warning her to turn back. Her eyes darted around the dim room, landing on the bed. The covers were a shambles, pillows strewn aside as if a great struggle had taken place. Claire's breath caught in her throat. It felt wrong, like stepping onto sacred ground violated by something wicked. "Lily? James?" she called, voice trembling yet desperate. A soft shuffle echoed from the closet, the unmistakable sound of tiny feet. Rushing forward, she pulled the door open, revealing nothing but a dark space unoccupied. "Come out, please." The urgent plea left her lips, but all that greeted her was the empty gloom. Claire's pulse raced. Where were her children? She stumbled back, the chill of impending dread snaking up her spine. Then, from the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of movement, a shadow flitting across the window. She whipped around but found nothing but the dim light filtering into the room. "Stay away!" a voice shrieked, piercing through her thoughts like a jagged blade. Claire froze, every muscle in her body tensed, staring at the bed where a figure now sat, small and childlike, shrouded in shadows. The figure turned, and Claire's worst fears materialized. It was her daughter, but her eyes were void, hollow, staring through her without recognition. "Lily?" Claire reached for her, but the girl extended a hand. "Mommy, you brought us here." The words echoed off the walls, filled with an uncanny sweetness that twisted Claire's stomach. Suddenly, a laughter burst from the closet, hollow and devoid of innocence. "Join us, Claire," the voice cooed, dripping with malice. It was as if another child lurked within, a dark version of what once was. The air thickened, suffocating her, as more whispers rose from all corners of the room. They swirled around her, taunting, beckoning from the recesses of her mind. "Don't," Claire gasped, struggling against the pull of the shadows. "You're not her. You're not my children." But the child on the bed stood, her form shimmering, flickering like a candle flame ready to snuff out. "Mommy, we want to play," Lily said, voice a silky allure tinted with a hint of pain. "Can't you hear them? They need you." Claire stumbled back, her heart racing madly. "Get away from her!" she screamed. The laughter crescendoed, enveloping her in sound. The closet door swung open, revealing a swirl of darkness. Shapes began to form, emaciated children, their eyes gleaming like hungry predators. She turned, ready to escape, but the doorway was gone, an impenetrable wall of shadow holding her captive. "Mommy, mommy," they chorused in a haunting melody that wrapped around her like chains. As they drew closer, the sensation of freezing fingers brushing her arms froze Claire to the core. She could feel them, tiny, clammy hands reaching out, begging, pleading. "Join us!" The whispers grew louder, louder until they blurred into a singular voice, demanding surrender, a chaos of noise that filled her very being, threatening to drown her sanity. Claire felt the pull of the shadows, a dark maw willing to swallow her whole. But within that tide of despair, she caught a fleeting memory of her children's laughter, the warmth of their embrace. With a primal roar, she tore herself free of the voices clawing at her mind. "No!" she screamed, flinging herself against the wall where the door had been. She pushed against the inky void, feeling the pressure intensifying. "I want to let you take me." In that defiant moment, the pressure broke, an explosion of sound and light burst forth, and Claire tumbled through the barrier into the hallway, gasping for breath. But as she lay gasping on the floor, the whispers took a chilling turn. "What did you leave behind, Claire?" Their waiting sickened by the realization. Claire scrambled to her feet, her mind racing. How could she save her children when darkness had already cloaked them? Time was running out as every tick of the clock echoed her impending doom. She had to go back. But could she face what awaited inside? Could she risk everything to uncover the truth? Claire stumbled through the hallway, her breath quickening, each heartbeat like a drum signaling her crazed thoughts. The whispers clung to her like shadows, each echo twisting words of guilt and despair. She gripped the banister, knuckles white as she forced her legs to move toward the staircase. Downstairs, darkness reigned. Shadows clung to the walls, almost alive, writhing as if awaiting her approach. She paused at the bottom step, heart pounding, straining to hear any sign of her children. But only silence answered, thick and oppressive. "James! Lily!" she called, voice small and shaky, slipping away into the suffocating void. A chill gust swept through the room, playing tricks with the hair on her arms, as if the house itself exhaled a deep, menacing sigh. She pushed onward, creeping toward the living room. The dread settled in her stomach, heavier than any weight. When she reached the doorway, she peered in, praying to see them safe. The room was empty, save for the flickering shadows cast by the fireplace, which blazed unnaturally bright against the consuming dark. Embers spat like tiny demons, hopping from the fire. Suddenly, a soft giggle broke through the silence, unmistakably Lily's timbre. Claire's heart jerked in her chest. Sure had to follow the voice. It led her through the kitchen, every step filled with trepidation. She turned sharply, eyes searching frantically, but all that met her gaze was the cold emptiness stretching before her. Then she saw it again, a flicker of movement near the back door. "Kids." She tried, but it came out as a whisper, quaking from fear. She stepped closer. The door was ajar, revealing the inky darkness of the backyard. It beckoned, whispering sweet promises mingled with vile intentions. "Mommy, come play there." It was again, her daughter's voice, sweet yet deceptive, luring her into the night. With dread pooling in her veins, she peered into the outside world, the cool air beckoning her deeper into the unknown. "Lily." Suddenly, the door slammed shut. Claire's heart sank as she rushed back, rattling the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic shot through her veins as the whispers surrounded her, a dissonant choir echoing her name. "Mommy, let us out." She banged on the door, desperation mixing with clashing dread. But as it rattled, the whispers grew silent, leaving an eerie stillness in their wake. The temperature dropped. A figure emerged from the corner of her eye, a slender shadow, barely human, inching closer. Claire turned wildly, breath hitching, and there lumbered a silhouette. James. But it was wrong. His form shimmered like a mirage under a harsh sun, shifting in and out of focus. "Mommy, they're angry," he croaked, head tilting in an unnatural angle. His eyes, once bright with life, glowed an otherworldly white now. The shadows behind him quivered as if alive, slithering on the walls. "We need to go." "James." Claire surged forward, but he dissolved into the dark like smoke, her heart shattered into a million pieces. "No. Please, don't leave me." Echoing laughter erupted, a chorus of twisted, childlike voices that sent ice shooting through her veins. "You left us, Claire. You left us behind." In that moment, clarity struck. She hadn't just left the house, she had pushed them away. The weight of her guilt crashed upon her. But she couldn't let fear win. Her children needed her. Tremors shook her hands, but she steadied herself, determination igniting anew. She suddenly understood, the only way to save them was to face whatever horror dwelled within those walls. With every ounce of courage, she ached for the upper floor where she'd encountered the shrouded forms. She'd go back into the heart of darkness. There had to be a way to break the spell, to reclaim her children from the grip of the void, but as she turned, ready to reclaim her strength, the shadows lunged forward, converging like a tidal wave, a jagged maw determined to consume her. "Mommy, save us before it's too late." And then she heard the sound of footsteps behind her, heavy and deliberate, advancing through the dark. Her heart lurched. What was now waiting for her in the shadows? Dread gripped her like a vice as she stood frozen. Did she have the strength to confront what was coming? Or was she already too late? The footsteps grew louder, reverberating off the walls like a funeral drumbeat. Claire's breath quickened. She was pinned to the spot, eyes darting back and forth, searching for the source of that ominous sound. A sudden rush of icy air swept through the room, making her shudder. "Mommy," came James's voice again, but it was more distant this time, as if he were sliding further away, slipping beyond her reach. "Hurry. They're coming for you." Claire's mind raced. She had to move. She couldn't afford to be a prisoner of the shadows, succumbing to whatever nightmare had gripped her family. Swallowing hard, she pushed off the wall, heart thundering against her ribs, and bolted toward the staircase. Her feet pounded against the floor as she dashed up the stairs. Each step sent tremors of dread spiraling through her. It felt like the shadows were clawing at her ankles, yearning to drag her back into the abyss below. She reached the landing, breathless, but fear fueled her desperation. "James! Lily!" she cried, voice raw, a mixture of terror and resolve. She peered into the first room, a long-abandoned nursery. Toys lay scattered, forgotten and dusty, and the walls were painted in soft pastels, but they felt tainted now, warped by sinister memories. As she stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind her, a loud bang that echoed through the empty house. The air thickened with a sense of foreboding, and she felt the chill pressed against her skin like a vice. "No, not this!" she gasped, her throat tightening. She turned around, frantic. The room seemed to shift, the walls bending, as if the very structure of the house was alive and aware. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the far end, a small child with glowing white eyes. The creature's laughter rang a sickly sweet echo that danced on her nerves. "Playing hide and seek," it sang, a twisted sing-song voice that sent shivers down her spine. "You're it, Mommy. You have to find a stop. You're not my children." Claire shouted, shaking her head, fury rising against the despair that threatened to consume her. "Mommy, we only wanted to be with you." The child tilted its head in an unnatural way, and fear clawed at her throat. It stepped closer, the sound of tiny feet plodding along the floor. Claire's heart raced. In that moment it struck her the feeling that this creature wasn't entirely a mere shadow but something worse, an amalgamation of her own fears and guilt, crafted from the very fabric of her sorrow. "You don't belong here," she whispered, voice barely steady. With newfound determination, she lunged for the door, yanking it open with a primal scream. But as she crossed the threshold, the darkness spilled out in torrents, reaching for her, grasping at her limbs with icy fingers. "Mommy, you can't leave us!" the plea echoed simultaneously, reverberating through the halls, morphing into a chilling chorus that drowned out her thoughts and flooded her mind with doubt. She stumbled backward, terror pinning her against the wall. Struggling against the shadows, she gasped for air, as memories flooded her children's laughter, their smiles, moments of joy, fractured and smeared with guilt. The power of those memories surged through her, lighting a fire in her heart. "I will find you!" she cried, her voice raw, defiant, cutting through the dark. "I won't let this take you." As she pushed against the dark tide, it recoiled momentarily, giving her space. Heart racing, she dashed down the hall and toward the final room, the one where she had first felt that suffocating grip of dread. But as she reached for the handle, a terrible realization struck her. A shadow loomed behind her, blocking her escape, the scent of charred wood and decay filling the air. In the pulsating darkness, a whisper grazed her ear. "Too late, join us." She felt the terror seep into her veins once again. What had she unlocked in her resolve? What horror awaited her on the other side of that door? Would she emerge in time, or would she become yet another whisper in the shadows? She froze, the weight of that whisper pressing down on her. The shadow loomed large, a creature barely human, its form shifting in the dim light. Claire could feel its breath, a rancid, burnt odor that made her stomach churn. She fought against the horror coiling in her gut. She had made a promise. She would find them, no matter what. With a sudden burst of courage, she swung the door open, escaping the suffocating grasp of the nursery. The hallway stretched before her, a gaping maw of darkness. She could hear her heart pounding, echoing in the silence. "James! Lily!" she shouted again, voice breaking, hoping against hope that somehow they would hear her. The air grew thicker around her, and the temperature plummeted. She shivered, but pressed forward. Each step felt weighted, as if the very house was conspiring to hold her back. She arrived at the room at the end of the hall, where the walls seemed to pulse with the energy of her desperation. As she reached for the doorknob, a cold hand shot out from the darkness behind her, gripping her wrist with an inhuman strength. She gasped, twisting to see the soulless eyes of the creature staring back at her, sparkling with malevolence. "You belong to us now," it hissed, its voice splintering into fragments of her children's laughter. "No." Claire screamed, wrenching her arm away and throwing herself against the door. The creature's grip faltered, and she seized the opportunity, flinging the door wide open. The room inside was unlike any she had seen. It was her children's playroom, but it appeared twisted, like an unfinished nightmare. The walls were adorned with drawings that seemed to shift and sway, their colors vibrant yet dark, depicting scenes of joy overlaid with shadows. And in the center stood two small figures, her children, their faces distorted and blank. "Mommy, play with us!" they exclaimed in unison, stepping forward, but their movements were jerky, unnatural. A dread filled her as she realized the truth behind their pitch-black eyes that stared back at her. "James! Lily! Please!" Claire cried, her voice trembling. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the terror clawing at her heart. "You have to come back to me." But as they came closer, she could see their mouths curling into grins, too wide and too sinister. "You could join us forever." James's voice twisted into something that felt foreign, something that was no longer her son. Fear surged, pushing her instincts into overdrive. With a frantic step back, she stumbled, landing hard against the floor, the dim light flickering and igniting her worst fears. The walls closed in, the laughter from the shadows rising to a deafening crescendo. "Mommy, don't you want to be with us?" Lily asked, and in the open space, all the toys surrounded her, springing to life, crawling toward her with a cacophony of giggles mixed with chilling whispers, begging her to submit to the darkness, entrapped, Claire's mind world. She took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of strength. "You are not my children," she shouted, determination filling her voice. "I will save you, no matter what." In that moment, the shadows recoiled, hissing like a wounded beast. With a roar of defiance, she dashed into the fray, pushing through the whirling darkness and reaching for her children. But then, cold fingers grasped her throat, lifting her off the ground. The creature loomed closer, whispering promises of despair, words of defeat curling around her. "Your children are part of us now." Claire's vision blurred as the darkness surged, her fight slipping beyond her grasp. Could she reclaim the light within the shadows? Would she find a way back, or was she destined to drown in the endless night? It was then she noticed something glittering among the chaos, a small, familiar object lying just beyond her reach. Could that be the key to reclaiming her children? Desperation ignited within her once more, and she lunged at it, driven by the most primal instinct a mother could possess. What awaited her on the other side of that desperate reach? Her fingers brushed against the familiar object, a small gleam of light against the suffocating darkness. The chilling laughter faded momentarily, the shadows momentarily hesitant, drawn to the glimmer of hope she clutched. It was a locket, one she had given to Lily on her last birthday. Inside, a photo of her children smiling back at her, their happy faces frozen in time. "Mommy, come join us." The shadowy figures cooed, their voices primitive, echoing in the darkness. But Claire's grip tightened around the locket, feeling the warmth of a memory flooding back, a memory of laughter, the sound of their shared moments, and love that couldn't be snuffed out by the abyss surrounding her. "I won't lose you," she shouted, voice unwavering, as if her declaration could shift the tides of this haunting nightmare. Using the locket as her weapon, she thrust it toward the advancing shadows. The light from the locket flared, illuminating the dim room in a ghostly glow. For a heartbeat, the shadows hesitated, writhing away from the light. Their twisted forms reared back as if seared. "We don't like that." James's voice warped again, thick with malice yet underlined with a hint of his childlike essence. "Leave." Claire felt a rush of adrenaline. "Stay back. I'm coming for you." She stepped forward, daring the shadows to confront her. Their grotesque forms faded as she advanced, the wall of darkness breaking before her like a wave retreating from a shore. But just when she thought she could reach her children, the darkness exploded around her, swirling into a tempest of fear. Shadows flickered and leaped, clawing at her soul with icy fingers. "You cannot save them," they screeched, voices intertwining in a cacophony that threatened to consume her. her heart thundered as she pushed deeper into the room. The locket pulsed with a guardian light, a beacon in the chaos. She felt the ground tremble beneath her, alive with anger and desperation. Would this strength be enough? James. Lily. Claire screamed, desperation clawing at her throat as she pushed through a final barrier of darkness. She could see them, their forms wavering like reflections in a cracked mirror, so close yet so agonizingly far away. Suddenly, a shrill scream pierced the air. One of the toys a once loving teddy bear took shape, its eyes glowing with a malevolent hunger. It lunged at her, tiny claws outstretched in a frenzy, eager to trap her in its grasp. Claire's instincts screamed at her as she ducked just in time, the bear crashing into the wall, thrashing in rage. "Leave my mother alone." Lily's voice erupted from the shadows, a hint of her true self breaking through. Claire could feel the conflict within her children, the battle waging against the dark whispers that ensnared them. "Don't listen to it," Claire cried, desperation bleeding into her words. "Reach for the light. Reach for me." But as the toy struggled, the shadows tightened their grip on her children, pulling them deeper into the void. The playful glimmer in their eyes shifted, replaced by the opaque darkness that swallowed their humanity. The locket glowed brighter, but Claire's strength was waning. "You won't take them from me," she screamed, bracing herself to charge into the madness, ready to fight for their freedom. A sharp laugh echoed through the night, and the shadows contorted, swirling into a vortex. "You think you can escape? We will have them, or we will have you." And in that moment, reality seemed to fracture. Claire felt the pull of the dark whirlpool, her pulse racing as the abyss beckoned her closer. Was this the end? Would she and her children be devoured by the darkness forever? She had to act fast. With one final burst of determination, she lifted the locket high above her head, calling upon the last spark of hope left inside her. "I'm coming for you, my loves. We will overcome this together." But as Claire surged forward, tearing into the heart of the shadowy chaos, the ground shattered beneath her feet, sending her tumbling into the endless void. Where would her frantic leap lead her? Into the depths of despair, or would the beacon of love guide her back to her children? The answer loomed over her like a dark cloud, heavy and foreboding. As she plunged into the darkness, one question echoed through the shadows: could love truly conquer the fiercest evil? Falling. Claire felt the cold grip of oblivion wrapping around her. She was weightless, surrounded by a vacuum of despair that threatened to pull her apart. The locket dangled from her fingers, shimmering timidly as the darkness roared around her like angry waves crashing against a forsaken cliff. "Mommy!" Lily's voice pierced the silence, a haunting whisper that echoed in the void, urging her to hold on. Claire's heart jolted, stinging realization clawing at her insides. "Hold on, baby. Just hold on." As the shadows surrounded her, they seemed to pulse with anger, twisting and writhing like snakes ready to strike. Their whispers clawed at her mind: "You should have stayed away. You're too late." Each word felt like ice plunging into her veins. Panic surged through her, mingling with determination. She squeezed the locket tighter. "I won't give up. I will find you." Light surged from the locket, pushing back against the shadows, illuminating faces that were familiar yet grotesque, twisted by the dark magic surrounding them. She could see her children James and Lily locked in a battle within glowing barriers of darkness, their faces shadowed, yet hauntingly familiar. They were there, alive but trapped. Suddenly, Claire felt the freezing grip of fear mingle with resolve. She wouldn't let the shadows win. "No. You won't take them." She rallied her strength and flared the light of the locket, forming a protective shield around her. The shadows recoiled, hissing in fury as Claire surged forward, propelled by the light. "I'm coming, hold on." But the closer she got, the stronger the shadows became, clawing at her with talons of despair, whispering darkly of failures and fears. "Give up, Mommy, just give up." They toyed with her mind, playing snippets of pain from her past, doubts that seemed to scream, but deeper still, another sound emerged. It was faint, a tiny voice filled with innocence. "Mommy, help. Lily." As if on cue, that small plea shattered the darkness around her, igniting an ember of hope inside Claire. With newfound vigor, she pushed through the grip of despair. "I'm here. Just a little further." The shadows writhed angrily, their forms twisting as they launched toward her, attempting to bind her like a web. Claire felt the icy fingers of fear grip her neck as she weaved and dodged. "No. You will not take my family." With one final push, she reached the shimmering perimeter around her children. James. Lily. They turned their faces toward her. For a moment, there was clarity in their eyes, a hint of the joyful children she knew. "Mommy." But as Claire reached out, the shadows shrieked in unison, swelling around her, threatening to engulf everything. "You cannot have them." The wall of darkness loomed even closer, a churning sea of nightmares. Reality flickered around them like an old film gone awry. She could taste the bitterness of impending loss on her tongue. Time slowed. The tension wrapped tightly like a noose. Claire whispered to herself, "Love is stronger than this." Instinctively, she pressed the locket to her heart, recalling every shared laugh, every hug, every moment together. She screamed, and then she hurled the locket with all the love and fury she could muster. It sliced through the shadows, exploding into radiant light. But would it be enough? As light engulfed the darkness, a thunderous roar filled the air, a sound so primal it shook the very fabric of her being. Shadows screeched in horror, their twisted faces collapsing under the brightness, their grip loosening, but for how long? The room trembled. Would the light be strong enough to banish the shadows forever, or would they return hungry for revenge? Within the intensity of that moment, a new form emerged from the darkness, a silhouette shimmered. Who or what was it? The air thickened with tension as uncertainty loomed. The battle was far from over. The blinding light fractured the darkness, sending tendrils of black swirling back, but then a figure stepped from behind the haze. It loomed tall and shrouded, its outline flickering, like a flame threatening to extinguish. Claire's heart raced, each beat echoing the pulse of dread coursing through her. Who was this intruder? A savior or another specter of the void? The light dimmed just enough for her to make out the features of face she recognized yet didn't. A gray, hollow visage, sunken eyes radiating an otherworldly glow. "Mommy." The voice was a whisper, but it roared in her ears, vibrating through her bones. It sounded like James. "James?" She croaked, disbelief hardening her throat. Hope teetered on the edge of a knife, ready to plunge into despair at any moment. "No!" screamed the shadows, their fury renewed with this flicker of hope. They writhed and twisted, surging toward the figure as if to swallow it whole. "You cannot have him. He is ours." Their voices harmonized in a wretched chorus, an awful symphony of terror. "Stay back!" Claire shouted, flaring the remnants of the locket's light, which sputtered weakly as if it too feared succumbing to what lay ahead. She took a step forward, unable to tear her eyes from the silhouette. "It's me." The figure stepped closer, light playing across its form. "It's me, Mommy." The shadows recoiled momentarily, darkness fracturing under the truth of the familiar voice, yet Claire hesitated. That face bore the likeness of her son but twisted, as if anger and sorrow had kneaded into one. It was him, and yet it wasn't he. Lily's laughter resonated from somewhere deep within the shadows, innocent and bright. Claire twisted around, desperately seeking her other child amidst the chaos. "Lily! Where are you?" Her voice was a shaky blend of fear and desperation. "I'm right here." Lily's voice echoed, a joyous note against the cacophony of darkness. The shadows hissed. The air tasted bitter. The entity that resembled James stepped closer, casting itself in front of the emerging figure of Lily, who materialized from behind the shadows, her small hands reaching out. "Mommy, help us." The two children stood at the edge, but the shadows surged, intermingling their forms within the dark, a grotesque inversion of what used to be, threatening to drag them back into the depths. "You can't save them!" they shrieked, their voices blending into a demonic chant. "No!" Claire screamed, pressing through the choking miasma of despair. "I refuse to believe this. You are not my children." The weight of the locket grew heavy against her heart, its glow pulsating like a beacon. "I know what love is." Suddenly, the ground trembled violently. The entire room swayed, reality splitting at the seams. With a roar, dark tendrils lashed out, tearing at her, clawing at the air. The children's forms flickered as shadows elaborated their newfound strategy: divide and conquer. "Mommy!" they cried in unison, a haunting echo of longing. "No!" she bellowed, fighting against the encroaching darkness. She felt her strength waning, the pull of despair squeezing tight like a vice around her chest, but then, clarity struck her like a bolt of lightning. "I want to let you take them," she shouted, pushing the decaying shadows from her mind. The locket surged brighter, a blinding flare against the ocean of darkness. "Together." The word echoed through the rift, a mantra of defiance, yet just as Claire felt the tide turning, the shadows howled in rage, reforming into a colossal, swirling mass of black that blocked her vision of the children. The specter of James grinned, a horrible grin that twisted her stomach with dread. "You're too late, Mommy." Before Claire could react, the other figure of light, was it really James? Vanished into the black, consumed without a trace. "James!" Her scream pierced the churning void, panic tightening her throat. She felt herself unraveling, losing grip on reality as she caught sight of that dreadful grin. Was this the moment where love failed? In that heartbeat of confusion, Claire couldn't shake the terrifying thought: if the shadows could invade her family's hearts, then was love really enough to fight back? The vicious darkness thrummed in the silence, now all-consuming. And somewhere, deep within the abyss, she could hear the children's voices faintly intertwined. "Mommy, help us!" Engulfed in the rising tide of despair, she braced herself for the battle that laid ahead. The real fight was about to begin. But who would remain standing at the end? Could she really save her children, or would the shadows take them forever? Claire's heart raced as she felt the shadows closing in on her, a churning sea of darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. It felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, willing to leap into the unknown to save her children. The air crackled, heavy with despair as the dark force pushed against her, whispering lies. "You're too late. You've lost them." "No!" Claire shouted, determination surging through her veins. The memories of her children filled her mind, illuminating her thoughts like sunlight bursting through a storm. She remembered their laughter, the warmth of their hugs, the moments of joy that had defined her life. "I want to let you take them. I want to." The locket in her hand pulsed with a fierce glow, a tiny beacon in the ocean of gloom. She could feel it swelling with the energy of her love, the sheer will to rescue her kids igniting flames of courage within her. "James! Lily! Listen to me!" she cried. Her voice resonated in the stillness, reaching for the two figures flickering within the tempest of shadows. "Mommy! Help us!" they echoed, their voices laden with innocence yet tainted by the darkness. The words filled her with renewed hope, changing the atmosphere around her, shifting the shadows away from where they stood. For each little giddy laugh she recalled, the locket's light pushed back against the encroaching darkness, illuminating the path to her children. With every ounce of strength, she lunged forward, charging straight into the mass of shadow. The fog swirled around her, grasping at her limbs, but she shattered the gloom with soul-splitting determination. "I believe in you!" she shouted, feeling the strength of her love armor her against the cold, suffocating touch. Suddenly, the shadows writhed, releasing their grip on James and Lily, revealing glimmers of their true selves behind layers of black. Claire tore through the chaos, arms outstretched, yelling, "Hold on! I'm coming for you!" The locket shone bright like a lighthouse beacon, guiding her through the storm. The children turned, surprise blossoming in their faces, those precious features slowly emerging from the haze. Mommy! They gasped, voices breaking through the murky air, filled with yearning. Their true forms flickered, flesh and bones stealing back from the void, as if pulled by an unseen force their mother's love, but the shadows shrieked, desperate to reclaim their prize. You can't save them. They hissed, cold fury echoing in the dark. The ominous mass surged once more, trying to envelop Claire before she could reach her children. Stay strong, she urged her kids, the locket held aloft as a shield against the onslaught. We're going to break this curse together. The shadows snapped and lunged, but Claire pressed forward, determined. She could almost reach them. As the room pulsed with tension, Claire could see her children faltering, fear flickering in their eyes. Don't listen to them. Remember, we are a family. We fight for each other. The darkness howled once again, and just as Claire closed the distance, they shot forth in anger, blocking her path. No. Get away from them. She screamed, the rawness of her voice tinged with desperation. With a fierce roar, she plunged the locket into the shadows, letting its light explode against the consuming blackness. You are not their home. In that blinding moment, a shockwave pulsed outward, blasting the shadows backward. Claire felt the warmth of love surge through her, connecting not just with her children but with every heartbeat, every precious memory shared. The locket erupted with light, and shadows shrieked in agony, unraveling around her like a fraying tapestry. James! Lily! Claire yelled as the shadows splintered, bursting like glass under the weight of a heart full of love. She dove through the remaining darkness, reaching for her children, ready to pull them from its grasp. Mommy! They cried, their voices growing stronger, clearer. And just like that, Claire grasped their hands, pulling them into her embrace, their laughter swirling around them like a melody rising above the storm. As the last of the shadows faded, light flooded the room. Claire clutched her children firm against her, warmth surrounding them like a protective cocoon. The oppressive air lifted, and the evil whispers dissipated into the ether. Breathless, Claire burst into tears, relief washing over her. You're home. I found you. We're safe. Each syllable brimmed with heartfelt joy, each heartbeat sinking as family reunited at last. Mommy, we were so scared, James whispered, his small face still pale. I know, baby. But we're together now. Nothing can take us apart. Claire held them close, feeling their warmth banishing the remnants of fear from her heart. Outside, the sun broke through the gray morning, illuminating Maplewood with clarity and hope. With renewed strength, Claire led her children back into the light, leaving the horrors of the past behind them. As they stepped into the radiant sunshine, the laughter of her kids filled the air, vibrant and free, extinguishing the shadows forever. The dark secret of Maplewood lost its power in the face of their unbreakable bond, and as Claire looked towards the horizon, she understood that love and a mother's courage could conquer even the most powerful darkness. This triumph echoed in her heart forever, the knowledge that they could face anything together. So here's the deal, everyone. If you want to keep experiencing these exclusive stories and thrilling adventures, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button right this second to keep the algorithm alive. Flood the comments section with your thoughts about this conclusion. Did you think Claire would save her kids? And you have to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ended. Don't wait even one more second, show your support now.